Welcome to the Main Street Business Insight podcast,
featuring the stories of America's downtown and neighborhood entrepreneurs.
There's so much about being a Main Street business that is intertwined with what it means to be part of a community.
The impact that it has on creating jobs, occupying vacant storefronts, improving the quality of life, like this is a big deal.
What advice would you give to other Main Street businesses?
Investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do.
What was that experience like for you to reach out and, learn from others?
Any entrepreneur getting into business, I highly recommend find the people that you trust that'll tell you the thing you may or may not want to hear when you need to hear it, and who will stand by you in helping to solve your challenges.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Main Street Business Inside podcast. I'm Matt Wagner, Chief Innovation Officer, and today you find me in Woodbury, New Jersey at the Monogram shop with Dottie Lange and Dottie McQuade, and we're going to get to them in just a second. But by way of a little bit of background, as you know, I've talked about on the podcast and in a number of our blogs about sort of this peak 65, the silver tsunami, as some have called it. Where we've got a number of boomers and other generations that are exiting or transitioning from their businesses. And we're sort of reaching that peak. And I've talked about it in a number of different sort of ways and occasions about those that have bought businesses as a result of other business owners, exiting their shops, but haven't had really an opportunity to cover it from sort of the other side of the equation, those that are selling and sort of what they're going through, both, from an emotional perspective, but also just kind of the nuts and bolts of what it's like to sell their store. And so I was really excited. It's now been probably 6-7 months ago that one of my former colleagues at Main Street, Josh Bloom, good friend and just a great, phenomenal expert in the world of downtown revitalization, was in Woodbury. And I think maybe he came into to the store, and he immediately, I got this note from him, and he's like, "You've got to come up to Woodbury and talk to the Dotties." I'm like, "Well, the Dotties, okay." I mean, of course I'm going to do it, right? And but explained their story, and I thought, "Oh, this is perfect in so many ways, both just from the wonderful business aspect, but also again to I think this really important subject that's on the minds of thousands of small business owners out there as they sort of make that consideration and are thinking through what's it like to transition and enter a new chapter of their lives." So with that, I'm really glad to be here and just want to introduce Dottie and Dottie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Right.
All right. And if you haven't noticed already, if you're watching the video on YouTube or another format, and you can see behind me and in the store, these two are big Philadelphia Eagle fans. And I am certain that this episode will air post Super Bowl, okay, since we're recording about a week before the Super Bowl. But do you all want to do a little shout out? Is there like a cheer that Eagles fans do?
Man, yeah. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles. And for all my Kansas City fans out there, I don't know if you can see this. I'll try to hold this up. They embroider toilet paper as well. And I guess we can show that on the screen. So I hope I didn't offend any of the Missouri,
everybody from Kansas City just tuned off.
Right? Yeah. Okay, that's the last we'll talk football today, but had to share that with you. Just speaks to the innovation from the Dotties. So, okay, I'm going to turn it over to you. Would love to hear a little bit more about how the two of you met and how did you become the Monogram shop?
Okay. Hi, I'm Dottie McQuade. I started this business in my basement, actually. I was there for about a year. And I had always loved embroidery, but never even considered doing something like this. I had 5 children, and when the youngest one went to kindergarten, I had been down in Ocean City and saw an embroidery shop down there, and I was fascinated by the fact that this machine was sewing all by itself. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. To make a long story short, we looked into purchasing a machine. It was actually my sister-in-law and I, and set it up in my basement. And I was like petrified once the guy who trained us left, because I was like, so now what? And my brother, oh yeah. So my brother said to me, you really need a storefront. That's what you need to do. You don't want to be in your basement. So he helped me open a storefront here in Woodbury, and not in the location we're in now. We've been in this location for about 12 years. And the whole process, we've been in business now for almost 40, and absolutely love it. I mean, I just adore this shop. And about, what was it, 1999?
Yeah.
That Dottie Lange became a partner. And we've moved to this location. It's on the corner of Broad and Delaware Street. And now we have gone from not only just personalized baby gifts and beach towels and totes and all, but we do a lot of company logos, and we have quite a customer list.
Yeah.
And yeah, just love what we do.
So the two of you have a long history, right? Like,
Yes.
So how did that happen? You're from the same neighborhood, same area?
Actually, we are from the same neighborhood, 4 blocks away from each other.
That's
I think.
wild.
But,
About a mile from here.
Yeah, we met at church, and our husbands were in the fire department together.
Okay.
So we just always
It was
knew each
natural.
other. Yeah.
And how did you get into the business? Did you fall in love with Monogram? And
Well, I've always been very into crafts.
Okay.
And I did a lot of sewing. And I was looking for something to do when my kids were little. And so I started working here as an employee. And then I became Dottie's partner in 99.
Okay.
So,
So fast forward, we're sitting in 2025
mhm.
now. When did it occur to you? Was there sort of like an epiphany, or was this a long, I don't want to call it like a trickle that just started to open up wider and wider? But how did the two of you come together to start thinking about, you know what, maybe it's our time. Maybe it's our time for retirement or a new chapter in our lives. And talk to me about like when that occurred, or how did it occur?
When my husband turned 60, he said to me, when I retire, I want to move out of the state. So I said I told Dottie, I says, we got 5 years. He wants to move out of state. And it's been 7 years.
Okay. You stretched it a little bit longer.
We stretched a little bit longer. And, in between that time, we had, the whole COVID mess. And so he is now retired. And for me, that is why I'm ready. Because life's too short. I want to do stuff.
Yeah. Dottie, did you come to the same point, or was it more Dottie coming to you and saying, this is my plan, what do you think? Are you going to continue on? Or
Dottie brought it up, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't leave the shop. I'm not ready. But now I'm ready. I mean, I'm going to miss it terribly, but it's time to move on. And honestly, I'm 12 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you never know how many days you have. And I was like, how terrible would that be for either one of us to have something happen where we couldn't continue to work because one person couldn't do this on their own?
Yeah.
It would be a real hardship for either one of us that was left with this by ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
And today, by the way, everyone send out shout outs to Dottie McQuade. It's her birthday today, which I think is the first we've ever had on the podcast. We're celebrating your birthday as well. All right.
Well, thank you.
So you come to this conclusion And then what? Was there certain steps? Did you like, how do we do this? Do we just put a shingle out? Or what was going through your mind at the time about just how do we make this happen?
Well, we talked with Gerald O'Connor. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's involved with Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce, and
very knowledgeable.
Very
That's
knowledgeable.
good. You went to local resource.
And he was right across the hall.
Even better.
Yes, we didn't have to leave the building. And we talked with him, and we got together the information that he requested and
said, how do we do this?
Yeah, he's been helping us. One of the things I did was put a small article in our local Chamber of Commerce newsletter. Unfortunately, that was totally misunderstood by those that read it, because people read the headline. They didn't read the article. And in the article, I stated that while we were looking to sell the business, we were not planning on closing. We were going to stay in business until we have too much background, too much connection with our customers, some of whom we've had for all 40 years, to just up and leave. And we had people come in and say, oh my gosh, when are you closing? When's your last day? And I'm like, that's not the case.
Oh no.
Because if we've never put a sign out that the business is for sale. It's always been pretty much word of mouth, because we didn't want to lose business if people thought we were closing.
Give the wrong impression. Yeah,
exactly. Which could impact then someone's willingness or
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's why in so many cases, most of the time, it's a pretty quiet process for that very, very reason. So over time, you were probably able to rectify a little bit of that, or people had forgotten about it. What next? Did you have to, how did you think about, well, what is the store worth? There's a financial equation at hand here.
We turned over years of financial records to Gerald, and he kind of guided us to a price.
Talked with our accountant.
Yeah, talked with our accountant and came up with a price. And we've had some inquiries, but we're looking for what we consider the perfect fit. We do have a young lady who shows a lot of interest, and that's what we like young. We want somebody who loves the shop like we do. So it's kind of what we're looking for. We would like someone to keep everything just like it is. That may not happen. We have an awful lot of business customers that we do their logos. So we would like to stay on maybe for a few months after the sale and help them through the transition process. We want them to meet our customers, feel comfortable with each other. We have a plan. We just hope it works out.
Yeah. Was there discussions around, this is the price and cut a check? Or I know there's been, some other pathways where business owners have said, you know what, this is my retirement. And so you could almost treat it as an annuity where you're the bank and they're making payments on that. What's your consideration about how a purchase would take place?
We have been advised to cut have a check cut.
Have a check.
Yes.
Yep. But then maybe stay on and help to advise or something like that.
Most people don't know how to run an embroidery machine, don't understand the embroidery software. So there's going to be a period of instruction.
Yeah.
And we have the two machines, both are very different. So you need to learn both of them. You need to learn the embroidery software, how to program stuff. So I'm thinking, like a 3-month kind of thing, but that could change.
Exactly.
Both of us live very close, and we are not opposed to coming in if there's a call that help, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
That I think makes it easier for us to walk away because we're still here and we can still, have our fingers in it if we need it.
Yeah.
If they need it.
I think that's a really key line, right? As you think about kind of the personal side, you both have been at this work for a very long time. You've built this business up. It has an identity. That identity is very much, in some ways, like associated with the two of you. How do you think about that separation?
Well, there's definitely a need for what we do. It would be a shame. I don't even know where our customers would go because there's not a lot of businesses that do what we do. A lot of them will do big bulk orders, but they don't know where to go to have a baby blanket embroidered or a beach towel. We also allow people to bring in their own item. They don't have to buy from us. And we just have found that we're unique in many, many ways. But as far as what you said about leaving the business, it's going to be very emotional for both of us. We've put so much into this shop, into this business, and we want to see it succeed.
Yeah.
To continue to succeed.
Is it your sense that a buyer of a Main Street kind of business is probably one that's fairly local, or like how have you branched out and communicated to any potential buyer?
The people that we've talked to have been local. The one person that we felt was not a fit at all. Well, there's two people. The first was a retired couple that all they wanted to do was own a business. They knew nothing about embroidery and they didn't want to be hands-on. So
pretty passive. They just kind of want to invest, buy it, and then someone else.
How can you?
But they even talked about moving out of the area, and was like, "You're not even going to be around here."
Yeah, they wanted to continue their travel. So how are you going to oversee a business that you don't want any parts of? The other one was a young man who really he talked down to us so much about. Like, I don't want all this. He says, I just want your client list. Well,
that's a big part of the business.
Just because we do a local logo for the car dealership doesn't mean we're doing, 175 pieces at a time.
Yes. Each
employee may be bringing in 5 or 6 shirts for us to do. And that employee then becomes a retail customer, not just a wholesale customer.
Very good point.
So when he asked me, what is your percentage of wholesale versus, business versus retail? I'm like, I can't answer that because they are one and the same. They go back
and forth.
They're one and the same.
Yeah. Interesting. You bring up one part of this whole puzzle that I never really thought about, but in essence, it's almost like a job interview. Like, I feel like the two of you are interviewing folks. Tell me what that's like. Do you have what should we ask them, or like, how are you, sort of what's the criteria? Because it does sound like you've had these intense kind of conversations that in many ways you're trying to make sure this is the right fit.
We want a good fit
for you.
Yeah,
right? We want a good fit.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people who've inquired and we're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. How about you?
The one person walked out the door and I said, yeah, that's a big no.
I'm glad you don't have like a scorecard now.
So, we shouldn't be picky, but we're picky. We're like, this is like our family. This is like, we're not just going to throw it to the wolves. It has to be, hopefully, just a perfect fit. And we're also aware of the fact that may not happen. We may end up having to sell off equipment and inventory and just close the doors. I don't think that'll happen, and I hope that doesn't happen. It's not what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
But we are also being realistic that maybe that is what our destiny is. I don't know.
Yeah, this is really fascinating in the fact that I think you're like many, Main Street business owners, where this is not just a transaction. I think if this was like a big corporation, like, sure, you had the money and you want to buy, fine, write the check. But this is totally different. It's not just about the financial side of it. It has to be the right fit. I think that's quite distinct.
It's like finding the best place as well. It's like trying to adopt out your kid, one that you like. The one you don't like, might not be a problem, but you want to make sure that they're going someplace perfect, and yes, perfect doesn't exist, but we would like to see, our reputation is the biggest thing here. And we don't want anybody to ever have a bad experience here.
We want them to be successful.
And we want the other person.
Do you feel like in some ways that's part of your legacy? I mean, the two of you live here. Like if it's a bad fit or whatever, is that a reflection on your decision at all? Does that weigh in the back of your mind?
Yes. I often think to myself, someone may come along and have the money and have the desire. And honest and truly, I'm just like, but do I like you? Are you a nice person? Are you? We want you to represent us well, even though it would no longer be our business. If that makes sense, I'm just like, it's important to me who you are that is gonna take over the shop.
Yeah.
As far as the succeeding versus the failing, excuse me, that can go both ways. You can sell the business to somebody who you think, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sell the business to somebody you think is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And then they just fail.
Yeah.
Through no fault of yours, but of theirs. And then you could also see them go like, whoa, way up here. And you're like, well, darn.
Why didn't I do that?
Yeah, why didn't I have it, why didn't I grow it to that level?
You're right. There are both sides.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think that's why I would like to see somebody young, because they know so much more today than we know. I mean, we were moms who had no business sense of anything, made a lot of mistakes. People hopefully can learn from our mistakes, but the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Learn social media from our kids. I mean,
maybe how to use AI as part of your work.
There's so much.
When you said about a podcast, I'm like, what's a podcast? So
they're learning a lot today.
I'm not up to date here. So to have somebody new and young with great ideas, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's just so much you could do.
Excellent. Has there been like other challenges you found along the way, whether it's been in sort of the process itself, coming up with the dollar amount? Like, what do you find are the key challenges once you made the decision to sell? Like, where did you find barriers or challenges along the way?
I think basically just finding the right person.
Yeah.
For me, that's been...
It's like a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. That's been, for me, the only real challenge.
Okay. What do you mean as far as selling goes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, I want to speak for you, but I think for Dottie, the whole idea of selling, she's had to come to grips with that emotionally.
Yeah.
Because this was her baby. This was, from start to finish.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, when Dottie first said to me, I really think we need to come up with an exit plan. It might be 5 years down the road, but we need to start thinking. That wasn't even on my radar. Yeah. I was just like,
never even occurred to you. Yeah.
So, but every year as I get older, I can feel that my energy level's not the same. My
Christmas has become a lot more difficult because
Christmas
is
like
the volume.
What didn't we just have that last month?
I need a break.
Yeah. And the business is still growing, and sometimes we get so far backed up with orders that I'll lay in bed at night and I'll be like, all right, tomorrow I've got to do this, and this. And it's just time.
This goes beyond store ownership of course, but there's always the discussion around like retirement. did work or business ownership define my purpose? And I wonder how the two of you think about purpose.
I'm not sure I understand the purpose.
Like the purpose of your life has been the business. How do you think about that?
I've already tried to think about, so when you no longer own the shop, what are you going to do with yourself?
Yeah.
And I think, me personally, I don't know about Dottie, but I think that I would like to volunteer, do some volunteer work. I need to do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to just stay home and get older and sit in the recliner. I want to do something. I love being around people. So I think volunteering would be a great thing for me.
When I decided the week or month before COVID hit and the world shut down, that I was going to take the courses I needed to become a travel agent. So the world shut down, nobody was traveling, and I did all my training for that. So now I'm a travel agent also, aside from doing this. So I see that that's my retirement gig. I can do that from anywhere. I can do it while traveling. My husband and I like to travel. So that's, I'm not feeling it as much, I don't think, as Dottie, because I've already planned my retirement gig. But I'll feel it. I'll feel it.
And she specializes in Disney.
There we go.
Yes.
We'll put that in the show notes, everyone.
Next podcast.
I do. I specialize in Disney vacation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a biggie for sure.
It is.
So let's talk a little bit about, as we close things out, what does legacy mean to the two of you? How do you think about the legacy of the store, of the way that you ran the place? What do you want to leave behind?
My legacy is, I want this shop to be remembered as a great place in Woodbury that brought a lot of customers into Woodbury, that we had a great reputation for being honest, doing good work. That would be my legacy, is just to be saying, oh gosh, remember the Monogram shop? That was great. And we want that to continue.
Yeah, I feel the same. That we've done some really unique things. We've done some things that we never thought we'd be able to do, as far as what some of our customers want. We bend over backwards for them to make sure they're happy. We don't want anybody to walk out of here not happy, because and I know that somebody that's not happy is going to tell a whole bunch of people. Somebody that is happy, it's totally different. And I just am proud of the fact that we have happy customers.
Well, in closing, I first just want to thank you for joining me on the show. This is a really, I think, powerful and important topic, and one that I'm sure is not like easy to talk about, but I think is really helpful to the listeners, because there's a lot of information out there. I think in terms of kind of the nuts and bolts that you described, got to look at your paperwork, you got to look at your tax returns, you got to think about a price, but there's the real emotional of understanding, what's my criteria? Is it purely just transactional and write me a check? And in most cases, I suspect, like yours, that it's not. And so every small business owner kind of has to go through that soul searching inside about like, what's meaningful to me. And so I appreciate you bringing that out and being willing to share your story on the podcast. And we certainly wish you both the best of luck, not only in the selling part, but obviously the next chapters of your life. You're going to do wonderful things, and the Monogram shop's going to continue to do wonderful things here in Woodbury.
We hope so.
That'd be perfect.
Yep.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you.
In closing, can I just say, go Eagles again?
We had to get it in, folks. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dottie Lange and Dottie McQuade of the Monogram shop in Woodbury, New Jersey.
Well, it didn't, I didn't have necessarily a chance to kind of get into it during the podcast with a lot of sort of data. But I do want to use sort of as we wrap up the podcast, really an opportunity to talk a little bit about what's happening out there, because I think the Dotties are symbolic in many ways of what we're seeing across downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts all across the country. And so I want to address a little bit the size and degree which we're seeing this transition of small businesses. And I've talked about this on our show a number of times, but in 2025 we're reaching this peak 65 as a demographic. And this is when a significant portion of the lower end of the baby boomer generation reached the age of 65, as the name would apply. Some people have also called it the silver tsunami. And with baby boomers owning roughly 40% of small businesses in the US, that's 12 million businesses, approximately, give or take a few, but it's a lot. It's likely that the largest wave of retirements in the U.S. history are going to be launched or are in process of launching transition. But this isn't simply a one-year thing, and I think that's the key thing to keep on mind. This is going to be going on for the next 5 to 10 years, and it's not actually even just exclusively a baby boomer thing. I think it's worth noting that the oldest of the next generation following the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, are turning 60 in 2025, meaning there's another generation sort of chomping at the bit and eyeing retirement. These numbers point to one big possibility: a lot of people thinking about retirement and putting their businesses on the market. So either way you look at it, that's a big transition point for many of our main streets then. So net, we're looking at the largest wealth transfer in the history of the US and frankly the world. Now, a New York Times article indicated over the next 20 years, it's estimated that 84 trillion, that's with a T, trillion, will likely change hands. Now, of course, not all of that is in business, the form of businesses, but obviously a lot is. And this makes the next few years a really critical stage when you think about our main streets or our small towns and neighborhoods where most mom and pop and sole preneurs and small businesses reside. This represents a wonderful opportunity, as the Dotties put it. We don't know a lot about technology and all this new stuff, and we're hopeful we can sell this to a young person. They're going to take it to the next level with tech know-how and social media, and close really some of these disparities, in my words, with larger competitors, or even giving them the possibility to grow into larger markets by accessing AI or other digital tools. But there's also a really clear threat, and I don't think that that's caught enough of the media attention, or perhaps even our attention. And so I want to bring this forward, and also want to call out and shout out a friend and former boss who's really covered this. But first, I think the real threat here for Main Street businesses, and we've seen this in the past, is on the private equity side. And the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and in particular, as I was alluding to, Kennedy Smith, who was the former president CEO of the National Main Street Center and my boss back in the 90s, has written quite a bit about this. And we'll attach their report from September in the show notes. But essentially what's been going on is sort of in the dark of night, or at least quietly, but with profound impact, private equity has been going in and buying up, small, what we think of as mom and pop or founder, one founder businesses, and many of them on main streets. And much of this buying has kind of been in the service or the skilled trade sectors. You think plumbing and HVAC businesses, or even funeral homes, as an example. So you don't have to imagine what this could look like as it grows and expands along main streets in the future as many more deals, as many more businesses look to exit. There's backed a lot of capital in private equity. And so just look at what's happened in the housing market overall, where private equity has really come in and sort of corporate based housing. And look where that's gotten us, less choices or no choices, and certainly higher prices. And so you think about Main Street and its competitive advantage and its brand identity with community, that really gets lost when you sort of corporatize, what were sort of mom and pop businesses or Main Street like businesses in our communities. So we'll explore this in upcoming episodes and blogs. I think this is a really important subject, and it's important that folks are aware, and hopefully we can seek out new tools and resources to ensure that, the identity of our communities, which is such a powerful, thing about quality of place, continues for generations to come. So as always, if you're a business owner, and likewise to my place professionals, colleagues out there, I hope this episode has provided plenty of new insights, solutions, and inspirations. And as consumers, please continue to support your local small businesses and, of course, tell their stories. They're so important to our local and national economies, and most importantly, they promote and provide quality of living to the places we all call home. Don't forget to show your Main Street pride. I'm wearing a little bit right here. I guess it's on this side by checking out our Main Street swag at shopmainstreet.org. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Please remember to check out our growing library of podcast recordings and other related films of the podcast on our Main Street America YouTube channel. Thanks as always for listening. Please rate and review us, and please subscribe. I don't know where that subscribe button is on here, but somewhere, please hit the subscribe and comment. And of course, tell your friends, family, and neighbors and colleagues. So until next time, thanks for all the support.